Lesson 35. Let's begin with our first word, accord. A useful phrase to remember is, she was in accord with the verdict. To be in accord means to agree with something. If two people both want to watch the same movie, they are in accord about their choice. If a jury agrees on a case, they are in accord with the verdict. The phrase, she was in accord with the verdict, is used when someone completely agrees with a decision, especially in legal matters or discussions. Now, let's look at coincide. A helpful phrase for this word is, the two events coincide. If two things coincide, they happen at the same time. If your birthday coincides with a national holiday, you might get a day off to celebrate. If two friends accidentally meet at the same restaurant, their plans coincide. The phrase, the two events coincide, is often used when talking about schedules or events that unexpectedly happen at the same time. Next, we have dual. A good phrase to remember is dual attack. If something is dual, it has two parts or two sides. A bilingual person speaks two languages, meaning they have dual language skills. A chess game where two players attack at once could be called a dual attack. The phrase dual attack is often used when two forces work together to defeat an opponent or solve a problem. Let's move on to fundamental. An example phrase is fundamental rules. If something is fundamental, it is basic, primary, and very important. Learning the alphabet is a fundamental part of reading. Following traffic lights is a fundamental rule for safe driving. The phrase fundamental rules is often used when talking about the most important guidelines that everyone must follow. Now, let's talk about immune. A useful phrase is immune to chickenpox. If someone is immune, they are protected from something, usually a disease. If you had chickenpox as a child, you are now immune to getting it again. Some laws make people immune from punishment under certain conditions. The phrase immune to chickenpox is used when talking about people who are protected from a disease because they had it before or got vaccinated. Next, we have literary. A great phrase for this word is literary analysis. If something is literary, it relates to books, writing, or literature. A person who studies famous novels is interested in literary works. A literary magazine publishes stories, essays, and poems. The phrase literary analysis is used when talking about studying and understanding books, poems, or plays. Let's move on to mythology. An important phrase to remember is Greek mythology. Mythology is the collection of old stories and legends, often explaining natural events or history. Greek mythology includes tales about Zeus, Hercules, and the Trojan War. Other cultures also have their own mythologies, full of gods, heroes, and monsters. The phrase Greek mythology is used when talking about the ancient stories of Greece that have been passed down for thousands of years. Now, let's discuss persuasion. A phrase to associate with this word is give in to the persuasion. Persuasion is the act of convincing someone to do or believe something. A salesperson uses persuasion to get customers to buy a product. A friend might use persuasion to convince you to try a new food. The phrase give in to the persuasion is used when someone finally agrees to do something after being convinced. Next, we have repel. A useful phrase is insect repellent. To repel means to drive something away or push it back. A raincoat repels water to keep you dry. Strong smells can repel insects from coming near. The phrase insect repellent is used when talking about sprays or lotions that keep bugs away, especially when camping or hiking. Finally, let's talk about tiresome. A helpful phrase is tiresome experience. If something is tiresome, it makes you feel tired or annoyed. A long, boring lecture can be a tiresome experience. Waiting in a long line at the store can also be tiresome. The phrase tiresome experience is often used when talking about something that is exhausting or frustrating. That's the end of Lesson 35. Keep practicing these words and phrases to build your vocabulary and confidence.